Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. The NFL season is officially underway as the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Dallas Cowboys last night in Philadelphia. The game was not without controversy as Jalen Carter is ejected from the game before a snap is even taken as he spit at Dak Prescott. Jalen Carter, of course, no stranger to on the field or off the field antics. We will see if he will be suspended by the NFL. It looks like there might have been two spitters, as Dak Prescott may have spit first. Well, he did spit first, but the question is, did he spit at Jalen Carter or not? Looked like he was spitting on the ground between his two linemen. He then steps up to Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter decides to spit down his jersey. So on and on we go. The NFL season is underway. The Chiefs and the Chargers will play tonight in Brazil, and that all leads us to a full slate of games on Sunday. That includes the Jets against the Steelers at MetLife Stadium. So we're looking forward to previewing that today, give you some ideas of what the Steelers are looking like heading into this 2025 season. We will be joined by Jarrett Bailey today. He's from the Sporting News and from the USA Today, and he's also the managing editor on SB Nation's Behind the Steel Curtain, so excited to get his perspective on the Steelers. For the Jets, let's start with the big injury, and we talked about how this team made it through the preseason relatively healthy despite having a lot of live tackling and a lot of physicality all through camp. And then, unfortunately, we get the news this week, a couple days after he's named captain of the team, Alijah Vera-Tucker's season is over before it began. He tears his tricep. It is the other tricep. He tore a tricep in his rookie campaign, missed the rest of that season when he got hurt in Denver. He's had fully missed seasons since then as well. He just has had a hard time staying healthy. This is a contract year, and he tears his other tricep. He's had surgery. His season is over. It will certainly affect the payday he's going to expect. And for the Jets, it really shakes up that offensive line. And the offensive line has depth. It is a place of strength for the Jets for the first time in a long time. And this is an immediate shot at that depth. So my expectation is that Joe Tippmann will move over to guard, and that's probably where he's going to end up staying. Tippmann's height makes him kind of an awkward center. We've seen him have a hard time snapping the ball in games over his last couple of seasons. He's a nice lineman. He's a good piece. He will be a very serviceable guard to the right of the center, but he's certainly no Alijah Vera-Tucker. With that as well means Myers will step up, and he will be the center most likely for the Jets. In terms of this game against the Steelers, we've talked a lot about how this is a very tough schedule for the Jets to open up the season. Heading into the bye week, they have games against the Steelers, the Bills. They then go to the Buccaneers. They then have to play Miami, which is always a challenge for the Jets. They play on Monday Night Football. The schedule also includes the Bengals on it and the Cowboys. It is a grueling start to the season, and it seems like the Steelers game might be an opportunity to steal a win. Aaron Rodgers has not played the entire preseason. I don't think he needs that much to ramp up, but he did not look very sharp to begin the year last year for the Jets, and hopefully, from a Jets perspective, he can have a similar slow start as well. It'll be interesting to see early on just how much they mix up the three running backs as they try to attack this dominant defensive line that the Steelers have. Now, that defensive line may be without Cam Hayward. Cameron Hayward is in a contract dispute. He did not practice yesterday, so we'll see if he is going to suit up or not. But either way, TJ Watt with his brand new shiny contract will be on the outside. It will be a test for these two talented young tackles that the Jets have used draft picks the last two seasons to keep Justin Fields healthy and keep him in the pocket and being able to make throws downfield, which is something he has not been able to do so far in the preseason. We've talked a lot about how his average air yards per attempt is just at 4.5. You need him to be throwing down the field more to give you room to run the ball. So we'll see how they shake up the running backs early on. I expect Breece Hall to get a lot of targets in this game. I expect rookie Mason Taylor to be unleashed a little bit in this first game, although he was listed as the second tight end behind Jeremy Ruckert. That's really just a nod on the initial depth chart to a more veteran player. Mason Taylor is going to be the pass-catching tight end on this team. And then we're going to get a first real look at what this receiving core is going to look like. After Garrett Wilson, you have Josh Reynolds and Arian Smith. And guys like Allan Lazard, who's trying to prove he's supposed to be on this team. Will they mix in Xavier Gibson at all? Who is going to be the receiver after Garrett Wilson who makes some noise? And that'll be essential to the Jets scoring enough to win games this season. Defensively, Jermaine Johnson is hopefully fully healthy and ready to go. He's going to suit up and play. He's been a full participant at practice, but this will be his first game action in a while since he suffered an Achilles injury. So next, we're going to speak to Jarrett Bailey from the Sporting News and the USA Today and the managing editor of Behind the Steel Curtain. And we'll be back real soon after this clip from the Jets.
Well, the Jets will be receiving the football as Pittsburgh defers after winning the toss. It's 23 again with a little snow in the air, nothing too intense. But this matchup is two teams that have struggled mightily in recent weeks offensively. Will they be able to get it going today? It's Brad Smith on the return from the 2. He's got a wide open lane, and Brad Smith's going to break it. Inside the 20, taking it all the way 98 yards and no flag. Oh, there is a flag. There's a flag back at the 16-yard line. Play. No foul. He's picking up the flag. Morelli picks up the flag, a 97-yard touchdown return.
Welcome back to the Gangrene Against the World podcast, and today I am joined by a writer who's formerly with the USA Today, and you can now catch his work all over the Sporting News, a lot of coverage of the spitting scandal last night with the Eagles and Cowboys, and he also does great work at the very popular SB Nation Behind the Steel Curtain. I'm welcomed by Jarrett Bailey. Jarrett, thanks for joining me this morning.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's going really well. I want to start just with an overall temperature check of the Steelers, right? The Steelers, 21 consecutive seasons without a losing record compared to the Jets not having a winning record in 10 years. And Mike Tomlin in his 19th season, a lot of consistency in the regular season, but no playoff wins since the 2016 season. What is the urgency like with Steelers fans right now?
Yeah, I mean, the urgency's certainly there. And if you're a fan, you want to see this thing end in terms of the playoff drought. And that's why they've made the moves that they have this offseason. That's why you go, sign an Aaron Rodgers. That's why you trade for Jalen Ramsey. You bring in Jonnu Smith in that trade. You do a bunch of different things to try to make both sides of the ball better. And, that's why you trade for DK Metcalf and give him an immediate extension. It's to get better and try to get over that mediocre hump, which they've kind of been stuck in for a while. So, yeah, I mean, the urgency is there from the fans, and, it seems like it's there from the organization too, because, yeah, it's great that you can go 9-8, 10-7 every year. It means absolutely nothing after a good bit when they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Going on 9 years of that, that's the longest drought they've had in the Super Bowl era. So, it's in terms of Tomlin, he's going to be there as long as he wants to be. He signed an extension through 2027. So, I mean, he's going to be there at least through that. They're not going to fire him. They just don't do that. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's for everybody else to decide. I think after this past season, it would have been a good time to move on and start anew. They obviously didn't. But I don't think that his leash is tightening or anything like that. But the outside pressure, I think they'd be lying if they said they didn't hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny, in the New York area, we get a lot of comparisons with the Yankees and the Steelers where the success is there. There's a lot of winning seasons and the winning seems to follow year over year. But at some point, you got to take that next step. And, the Steelers, they switched out their leading passer, rusher, and receiver, right, for a new group of folks. And do you see this offense being better this year than it was last year under Russell Wilson and Justin Fields?
Yeah, I do. And the stuff with Justin was weird because they didn't really lean into his legs all that much. He did it some against Indianapolis. They were down early and he had a couple rushing touchdowns to help bring them back. But for the most part, they didn't really lean into what he does best, which is run the ball. That's not trying to, knock him or anything. It's just what it is at this point in his career, where there are shortcomings from him in the passing game in terms of reading defenses and whatnot. But when it comes to running the ball, I mean, he's as good as any quarterback in the league. So they didn't really lean into that, which was weird, but they still went 4-2 in the first 6 games with him. And the 2 games that they lost were both 1-score games. So they were in all 6 games. I didn't like the decision to bench him in favor of Russell Wilson. Obviously, there were immediate returns in terms of the games that he had against the Giants and the Jets, a big game against the Bengals and Commanders. But after that, the bottom just completely fell out. So I think that Rodgers will bring a little bit more stability, a little bit more consistency. I think running back-wise, they'll have a little bit more of that as well with Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren. Warren's going to be the one, but they're going to continue to work in Caleb Johnson more and more as time goes on. So I think that they'll have a little bit more stability and consistency offensively. And I think defensively, you look at the upgrades that they have, especially in the secondary, you swap out, Dante Jackson and bring in Jalen Ramsey and bring in Darius Slay. Like, those are two massive upgrades. Ramsey, they've made it pretty clear he's going to play all over the place, whether it's nickel, out wide, occasionally at safety. Like, they're going to move him around, try to keep all three of those guys on the field as often as possible. But they have depth at that position as well. Most depth they've had at cornerback in, I don't know, almost 20 years. Like, since the mid-2000s when they were making those Super Bowl runs, it's probably the deepest room that they've had since then. So overall, I think the roster's better. I think the offense is going to be more stable and consistent. And I think defensively, we're not going to see a complete just collapse at the end of the year, similar to what we did last year. So if they can do that, I think that's worth at least one more win, which should get them to 11 and hopefully either, an AFC North title, because, the division that they play in will, the Bengals, Ravens, Steelers will all eat each other a little bit. But if it's not that, then maybe it's the number 5 seed in the AFC wild card, which would be, a big upgrade over what they've had over the past few years.
Yeah, and then you play in the AFC South Invitational on Saturday at 4 o'clock, and you hopefully take your shot against the Texans. Honing in on the game on Sunday, I think the first place to start is, the Jets have 2 young tackles. They just lost Alijah Vera-Tucker for the season, and on the Steelers defense, you have 2 elite pass rushers who combined have, almost 200 sacks. But one of them might not be playing. So what's the latest on Cam Hayward? Is he really going to sit out of the first game because of the contract dispute? How do you see that playing out Sunday?
Yeah, Mike Tomlin says he expects him to play, so we'll see. But yeah, the whole thing's just incredibly annoying where he signed an extension last year. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't like the money, then he shouldn't have signed it. 99 times out of 100, I'm very pro player when it comes to this. Millionaires over billionaires, all that, completely understand. But it seems like every year we're here. Can I swear on this podcast, by the way?
Yeah, go for it.
Every year we're hearing Cam Hayward bitch and moan about money, and it's just gotten old. And it's like, what more could you want, dude? You've made over $130 million in your career. They let your brother hang out on the team, and they just gave you an extension last year, and yet you're still talking about how you feel undervalued. Get the hell out. So I think that there's a lot of the fan base that's just already very over the Cam Hayward, just consistently like, oh, I want more money. Oh, I feel undervalued. I don't know what else they can do to make you feel valued, bud. So yeah, I think that's where that's where a lot of the fan base lies right now. Is he going to play? I would say, yeah. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Schefter kind of made a big deal of it yesterday where he was like, oh, Cam Hayward not practicing today. And immediately I was like, it's probably a vet day off. Cam usually gets those at least once a week. Exactly. And of course, that's what it was. So I expect him to play. I'd be surprised if he didn't. But if he doesn't, it's incredibly hypocritical for a guy who was like, hey, it's no skin off my back if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come here. You either want to be a Steeler or you don't, only for him to sit out because he wants a little bit more money. So I would be very surprised if he doesn't play.
Yeah, I'd expect him to play too, but I think I speak for Jets fans when I say, you know what, take a stand, sit out. I think that'd be good. But, I think the where the Jets are going to get in a little bit of trouble is going to be young tackles, now a new interior lineup on the offensive line, and TJ Watt and Hayward making a lot of noise. When you look at the middle of that defense, the linebacker depth, who are the players you're looking out for to have another big season or to emerge as the linebacking core for the Steelers?
Peyton Wilson's going into a big year too. He had a good rookie year last year. With Landon Roberts not there anymore as the 3, and Peyton Wilson's going to have a little bit bigger role. Cole Holcomb's coming back after missing all of last year because of an injury he suffered in 2023. So those are going to be like Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb. Those are going to be your 3 linebackers for the Steelers that get the bulk of the reps, of the snaps. Malik Harrison, they brought over from Baltimore. He'll be, a depth guy. And then Carson Bruner, he was a 5th round, 6th round pick, day 3 pick out of Washington. He'll be a special teamer. So, they've got 3 guys that will get the majority of the snaps, and Malik Harrison will rotate in a little bit. But Peyton Wilson was one of my favorite players last year coming out of the draft, and I was incredibly surprised that he fell to the Steelers in the 3rd round. And just talking to him and like how smart he is, his football IQ is very high. He's just a baller, man. He just wants to play and he wants to hit, and he showcased that he like suplexed, who the hell was it? Is it Tank Bigsby in week 1 of the preseason against Jacksonville? It's like the dude's just a gamer and wants to hit people and just wants to be, he wants to be a Steelers linebacker. So I'm looking forward to seeing what year 2 looks like for him. Patrick Queen had a little bit of ups and downs last year. Finished the year much stronger than it started. So hopefully with a full season or, a whole, trip around the track, if you will, having a full year in Pittsburgh going into year 2 with the Steelers, hopefully, he's more consistent. But Peyton Wilson, one of my just favorite overall players to watch. I think he's going to have a big year.
They talked a lot about this offseason, bringing back Blitzburg and being more aggressive. So interesting to see how they use the young linebacker. And now just to focus in on obviously the most important position. And Aaron Rodgers is a sore subject for Jets fans. I think Jets fans actually, the thought of like booing him on Sunday and all this stuff has gotten a little bit out of control. He got hurt 4 plays in. He's an older quarterback. Last year in clutch time, he was really bad. They're 3-7 in one possession games. They don't win a game within 3 points. And that's where the Aaron Rodgers we're used to seeing just didn't show up last season, particularly early on because he didn't play in the preseason and he was pretty rusty. So what's your view on Rodgers' start? How do you think they're going to attack this offensive game plan? Obviously, DK adds an enormous element downfield, but how do you project, Rodgers to look in this first week against the Jets?
I mean, I think both offenses are going to look slow. Bet the under for this game. Over-under is 38.5. Hammer the under. This is going to be a low-scoring game with a lot of punts. Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt are going to be snoozing off, but midway through the third quarter, like it's going to be rough offensively, if I had to guess. But do I think that Rodgers is going to be a turnover machine? No, he never has been. That's not going to be the issue here. I think the biggest thing for them is just going to be just getting the timing down because Rodgers didn't play in the preseason. DK didn't play in the preseason. It's going to take some time there. I think what plays into the Steelers' hand is that defensively they looked on another level throughout camp. And it's easier for defenses this time of year to get quickly acquainted rather than offenses where, it's a lot more jargon, a lot more, new playbooks and everything like that. For the defense, it's a little bit easier to get, just get things together. And so when I look at the Jets offense, I mean, it's Garrett Wilson and it's Garrett Wilson. So I think the Steelers defense is going to have the absolute advantage when it comes to that matchup. They know Justin, obviously he was there last year. So I think, they know how to keep him hemmed in. They usually do well against mobile quarterbacks anyway. So I think that that's the matchup that the Jets just have zero advantage in, is their offense doesn't have a lot of playmakers. The Steelers defense does. Their edge rushers are very good. They're going to have the advantage in the trenches. They're going to have the advantage in the secondary. The only thing that could keep the Jets in this is if Justin Fields just has like a huge splash run and uses his legs to just go off. Passing wise, I just don't see a big game taking place here. So bet the under is my biggest takeaway from this. I think the Steelers will win like 16-10, something just gross. It's not going to be pretty.
I had 19-10 as the official prediction. Yeah. The Steelers winning a lot of field goals. And for the Jets, it's the first opportunity to see a rookie in Mason Taylor, which is exciting. And I think you're going to see a lot of dump offs. You're going to see a lot of pressure in Fields' face, and Breece Hall is going to get, 7 to 10 targets. And Garrett Wilson has had 1,000 receiving yards in every season of his young career with, being double teamed a lot and having no one really throwing to him outside of last season's. General question, I talked about leading into this segment. When I think Jets Steelers, all I really think about is pain. I think about Doug Bryan missing 2 field goals. I think about Mark Sanchez dropping back at the end of the first half in the AFC Championship game and the strip sack when he never should have been throwing the ball anyway. When you think Jets Steelers, from a Steelers perspective, what are some of the games you think about? What are some of the moments you think about when you think about these two teams against each other?
For some reason, in like recent history, the Jets have actually done pretty well against Pittsburgh. There was a game in what year was this? Was it 21? Where they lost? No, it would have been 2019. They lose to who was the quarterback then? Well, I guess it would have been Darnold. It was the year that Ben got hurt, and it was a combination of Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. The Steelers were 8-5. They just had to win one more game. They would have been a wild card team. They lose their final 3, and I think the Jets were the first loss of that, because then they lose to Buffalo the following week, and then Baltimore to close out the year. The Jets were the first loss of that. Mike Vick beat them once.
That's right.
Like, trips to MetLife to face the Jets, like, haven't gone great for the Steelers in recent memory. I have to go back to see when the last time they won on the road against the Jets was, because I feel like it's been a while. Yeah, like the regular season games between these two teams, if it's at Pittsburgh, usually the Steelers, have a nice advantage. There was a game, 2016? It was at home, and Ben hit like Sammy Coates for a long touchdown, and they beat him pretty handily. They were wearing the Bumblebee uniforms that game. So, like, it almost depends on like where this game takes place in terms of like who the victor is in recent memory. But I'm trying to. Yeah, the AFC title game.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, Ben ran in a touchdown. It was the Steelers like had a nice lead for a little bit. The Jets mounted some sort of a comeback. The Steelers had a goal line stand.
Yeah, if that game was 5 minutes longer, the Jets win that game. I think they were down 21. And the strip sack leading to the score at the end of the half. And I'm sitting in my dorm room at William Patterson University, just lights off, ruining the day. I am curious, you touched on a little bit about Justin Fields. Was there a feeling that from Steelers fans that they wanted to bring Fields back when it seemed clear Russell Wilson was going? Or what was the feeling around Fields, after his short stint with Pittsburgh?
I thought he was coming back. I was fully, after Mike Tomlin's exit presser, I was like, okay, Fields is probably going to be the guy they bring back. He's emphasized like mobility in a quarterback for the longest time. It was clear that Russ, like, that just wasn't going to work. And if they brought back Russ, a lot of fans are going to be pissed just because, like, all right, we just saw how this went. Why are you running this back? So Justin was the guy I fully anticipated being back. And then the Jets gave him more money. The Steelers, Steelers are kind of a cheap organization when it comes down to it on certain things. And look, I kind of get it. In terms of like, all right, we don't know if he's going to be our long-term guy. We don't want to, give him that kind of money, whatever. That's fine. But I thought he was going to be back, and I was surprised when he wasn't. But also, I'm a Justin Fields guy. I always have been. I hope that he does well with the Jets. But I was just surprised. And then immediately it was like, okay, then Rodgers is going to be the guy. It's just a matter of when he decides he, shows up. And, we had the 3 months of speculation and whatnot. And finally, inevitably it happened. But with Justin, like I said, what he brings to the table with his legs, his mobility. He has a big arm. It's just a matter of can he, get the ball out quicker in the quick game to make things a little bit more dangerous offensively. But I was surprised that they didn't bring him back.
Yeah, his last 17 starts, it was the last 11 games with Chicago and then 6 in Pittsburgh. He's a top 16 quarterback in those games, and that's all the Jets really need him to be. They have to have a defense that, keeps the score down, and they have to be leading the league in rushing attempts. They have 3 really nice running backs, and it'll be interesting to see how the game plan changes against Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is a really tough matchup for the Jets to start things off, and I can just, I can hear the panic in my section at MetLife Stadium when this game is, like 13-0 and the offense looks really rough. But I think it's going to take some time for this offense to get going. And my last Rodgers question for you is there any sense of negativity around Rodgers? Obviously, this is towards the end. There's a history of veteran, older quarterbacks still making one last hurrah, and the Steelers seem like to be the right fit for him. But what's the overall sense? Is it excitement? Is it, hey, we got Aaron Rodgers, this is amazing? Or is it, hey, I think we have the wrong version of Aaron Rodgers right now?
It's more excitement than anything. Even with the Jets last year not being great, he still put up numbers that, for a 40-year-old quarterback, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. It's an apples to oranges comparison, and I completely understand that being a Josh Allen guy, but threw the same amount of touchdowns as Josh Allen did. So, still a guy that can produce, and I think a change of scenery with a little bit more, a stronger hierarchy in terms of the ownership group and Mike Tomlin, where, not to, pick on your Jets too much, but Woody Johnson is just
the worst owner in football.
He's not good.
Yeah.
Rodgers was running the show with the Jets. He's not going to be doing that in Pittsburgh. And guys seem to really enjoy him. Like, you can say what you want about Aaron in terms of like, okay, you think that he's a little, quirky and whatnot with all his conspiracy stuff and whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
You'd be hard pressed to find a lot of teammates that say, I didn't like him. He was a bad teammate. And so thus far, like, it seems like all the guys are really coming around to him and have enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like on the field. But yeah, it's more excitement than anything for me. Like, I'm allowing myself to be optimistic about this. And I think as a Steelers fan, I think I've been pretty realistic. Like, when they drafted Kenny Pickett, I contemplated going down to the Clemente Bridge and just, it wasn't good. And, for 2 years, I had to deal with that monstrosity at quarterback. Now, I can look at it and say, all right, like, 4-time MVP, he's not 2020 Aaron Rodgers anymore, but still a guy that if put in the right situation with the right pieces around him, you can win games with that. And that's how I'm looking at this season as a whole.
Yeah, listen, I've always said Aaron Rodgers has been my favorite quarterback to watch, in my life. And I would love to see him have a nice, successful run with the Steelers. And to your point about the teammates around him, even when things got really ugly last year, they never turned on him. You never heard people talking about him. Yeah. He had really productive games at the end of the season when the season was already pretty much over. So he didn't quit either. So I hope, that he has a good run. And overall, I'm excited to have a game at MetLife Stadium, and it's a clean slate for the Jets, and I think an exciting year for the Steelers. You gave your prediction on the game itself. Just real quick, where do you think the Steelers end up this season?
I think that they'll be 11-6. I think they'll tie for first place with Baltimore in the division, but Baltimore will get the tiebreaker. And then the Steelers will be the 5 seed in the AFC wildcard. They'll play the winner of the AFC South, who I say is going to be Jacksonville. They win that game against the Jaguars before losing to the number 1 seed, who is Buffalo.
There you go. Well, Jarrett, I really appreciate you joining, the first regular season guest on the podcast. Just real quick, where can we find your work and where can we find some of the stuff you're putting out there?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. I'm putting everything out there in terms of the recent stuff that came out. I did a piece for SB Nation talking about how if you want to be able to run the ball, you have to be able to throw the ball. It's a passing league at the end of the day, and the numbers back that up. So a little bit of a deep dive analytically on that, as well as over on my Substack, The Snap. I did 35 predictions for the season. So you can check that out at jbaileyNFL.substack.com.
That's great. And also, I think everyone should check out, you did a panel breaking down the top 30 quarterbacks in NFL history. That was really great. So people should check that out as well. Coming up after this, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to do the 5 things to look for in this Jets-Steelers game. Jarrett, thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Have a good one.
First and 10 at the 34. Here's Curtis Martin. And Curtis Martin. Let's see. It's a foot race. Martin tracked down by Deshaun Townsend at the 10.
Welcome back to the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I want to thank Jarrett Bailey for joining me, and a couple notes on the clips you heard before and after my conversation with Jarrett. The one beforehand was a highlight from 2010, the Jets against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, a 4:25 game on CBS, and the Jets had not scored a touchdown in 70 game minutes. They were looking like they might play themselves out of the playoffs, and instead they go ahead and beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. They, of course, end up losing to Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game that season, but a memorable year for the Jets, of course. They would beat the Colts, and then they would beat New England in New England before losing to Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. And then the one we heard right afterwards is a game from 2003, a snowy game that I remember fondly, a long Curtis Martin run, and in what was a down year for the Jets. It's the year that Chad Pennington hurt his finger in the preseason. They never really got the offense going that year. They finished with 6 wins. But then, of course, that leads to a really nice run of seasons through the 2000s. And overall, that game was just memorable. A nice snowy game, no offense to speak of, but a memorable win in a down year. So we're hoping we'll have another memorable win week 1 against the Steelers at MetLife Stadium, the return of Aaron Rodgers. I talked about it a little bit with Jarrett, but I think the hatred towards Aaron Rodgers is a little overplayed by Jets fans. And listen, I did not enjoy his run. There was not a lot of peaks. Obviously, he's injured the first season. Second season just never really, lifts off. A lot of that, I think, is to blame of Woody Johnson. Firing a head coach when you're 2-3 because you're mad that you got beat in front of your friends in England is not the right reason to fire a head coach. And then really messes up the defense. It messes up the morale. And although Rodgers was not great and did not win close games, this was not Aaron Rodgers' fault. And listen, does he come with a lot of noise because we hear him every week on Pat McAfee and all the other nonsense that goes on with Aaron Rodgers? Sure. But to think that he should be booed relentlessly at MetLife, I think is a little much. Listen, when the opposing team runs out on the field, they get booed. I sit there in my section and I boo them too. They run out the tunnel right in front of me. But to think that Aaron Rodgers should be booed every time he's dropping back to pass, I think is a little much. What I do think is, important and would be really good for the fan base's morale is to beat them. I don't want to listen to a post-game press conference of Aaron Rodgers talking about how it felt to win at MetLife Stadium against his former team. And I want the button of the Aaron Rodgers tenure to be a Jets victory when he comes back, not Aaron Rodgers, playing his old disheveled team and beating them at home in front of fans who really wanted to see him win as a Jet. So the Aaron Rodgers stuff, I'm excited for it, but I'm also ready for it to end. And I'm glad it's week 1 because at least we can get rid of this storyline and move on with the rest of the season. So my prediction for the game, I do think that the game is going to be low scoring. I do, like Jarrett said, I think take the under on this one for sure. I think the final score will be something along the lines of 19-10. A lot of field goals, coming from both sides. And overall, I just want this game to end with it not being a no-show. You think of all the early games in the seasons over the last 5-10 years where they just get blown out, where at the end of the first half, they're already down big and you just don't think there's much of a game left ahead of them. So I want them to be competitive and I want them to show that this is a new culture. This is a new team under Aaron Glenn. And the way to win, like we said, is run the ball a lot, 35, 36, 37 carries in this game, I think will be pivotal. Don't trail early so you're not forced to have Justin Fields throw downfield and become vulnerable, in the passing game. Overall, keep it. The defense, keep everything in front of them. We know that Rodgers does not want to throw the ball downfield much. He did not do that with the Jets. You can't have DK leaking for the one-off shots downfield. So we're going to wrap things up as we do before every game with the 5 things to watch for from the Jets in the Week 1 matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 5, the running back rotation. How are they going to use Braille and Allan? Obviously, they're going to use him in short yardage situations. I expect him to be in there in goal line situations, using his big frame to get the short gains needed to score some points in the red zone, which has been a problem for the Jets. But I'm also curious to see how Isaiah Davis is used. Is he going to get 5 to 10 snaps? Are they going to use him in the passing game at all? I think he's a nice change of pace back where you can do more traditional running with him. And then also, how many targets does Breece Hall get? Would love to see him get 5, 7, 10 targets out of the backfield, really utilize his ability with the ball in his hands. Number 4, special teams. It seems simple, but special teams has been such an issue for this team for so long. The coverage and kicking has been good in the preseason. Nick Folk, he's been good on over 90% of his kicks over the last 2 years. And it seems like McNamara has got something as the punter. So it'd be good if that is all shored up so that they can be a top half special teams unit this season. Number 3, I want to see Fields take a shot early. I want to see a play action deep ball to Garrett Wilson just to show that he's willing to throw the ball downfield. I think that will give him some space. That'll give him some opportunity to run the ball as well. If the Steelers are just bringing 7, 8 guys into the box and loading up for the run, it's going to be a long day for the Jets. Number 2 is who is going to be the true wide receiver 2. It's our first real test to see who's going to be the player behind Garrett Wilson as a receiver to bring something to this team. Is it going to be Arian Smith? Is it going to be Josh Reynolds? Is it Allen Lazard, once again, kind of stepping up? We've seen him do it a little bit in flashes with the Jets before. Who is going to be the wide receiver 2 for this team? And who's going to be someone else that Fields can rely on to throw the ball, who's not a rookie in Mason Taylor or a running back or Garrett Wilson? And number 1, it's really simple. You got to block and you got to protect your quarterback. And Fashanu and Membu are going to have a long day, but they can't have it be the reason this game is wrecked. It can't be that TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and their almost 200 combined sacks are getting after Fields. Obviously, Fields can elude pressure by running the ball, but you don't want him taking too many big hits. You also want him to feel comfortable throwing the ball. And the one way to make sure they're not one-dimensional is to rise up against 2 of the best in the league and make sure that you are holding your own on the outside so they don't have to keep a running back in all the time to block so that they can be a weapon from the backfield as well. Well, this has been episode 10 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I want to once again thank Jarrett Bailey for joining me today. We're here, MetLife Stadium on Sunday. I can't wait to be at the game. I'll be tailgating as always. I'll be doing some social media betting picks while I'm grilling up before we walk in for the 1 o'clock matchup to see Aaron Rodgers once again in MetLife Stadium. An exciting and crazy start to the NFL season yesterday with the Eagles and Cowboys. An interesting matchup with the Chargers and Chiefs tonight in Brazil. A full slate of games on Sunday. The NFL season is here, and it's a lot of fun. This has been the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. Thank you so much for listening.